Hi guys, and welcome to Escape with Watch Reviews. My name is Steve, and today we're going to be reviewing the Watchdives WD16500. You can also see that I do have the Pagani design of a very similar style right next to it. We're going to compare these things side by side. I purchased this watch just for purposes of this review. I got this one for free. I don't have to send it back, but you guys know the deal by now. It's not going to sway my review. I'm not going to hold anything back. You're going to get my honest opinion every single time. And if by the end of this review you want to pick either one of these up, I will leave a link down in the video description. If you use that link, it is an affiliate link. It's not going to cost you any extra, but it'll earn the channel a little bit of commission to help keep the channel running and allow me to do some more comparisons like this. So the retail price for this watch is $99 US. That's before any taxes, coupons, discounts, or anything like that. We are currently in a summer sale. You can snag this for $20 off. So that does automatically get applied at checkout, which is nice to see. So you're getting this thing for around $80 US. The watch comes in 4 different colorways, which you can see here. I think they all look good, even the two-tone, which I'm usually not a big fan of. Now, side by side, these watches are very similar. The spec sheet across them is pretty much identical. They both have stainless steel cases, sapphire crystals, screw-down crown, screw-down case back, 100 meters of claimed water resistance. They're both powered by the Seiko VK64 Mecha Quartz. They both have solid link bracelets. The only real difference in the spec sheet is that this one has Swiss BGW9 on the dial, the hands, and the bezel insert. This one just uses the typical green terrible Lume. So yeah, that's pretty much the only thing spec wise that is different between these two. So I really think this watch here is a great option for someone that wants something a little bit higher quality than the Pagani, but they don't want to spend the $300 on these two guests. It slots nicely in between. It is an improvement across the board, pretty much across the board over this Pagani. In some areas it's pretty drastic, in other areas it's not really that drastic, and I'll cover all the differences in this video. So get comfortable and let's dig into it. But before we do, as always, do a quick wrist check today. Wearing a new watch. This is a Betimer. This is a GP Loreto, I don't even know, homage or clomage. This thing is coming to the channel very soon. This is a very, very nice watch, and I believe it is on sale in the summer sale. So I'll also leave a link for this watch down below too. Really, really nice. All right, so let's get into the dimensions. As you can see, I'm just going to pop them up on screen here. These are all measured with my calipers back to back. They're pretty similar in overall size, overall weight. You can see the Pagani is a little bit thinner, although I think it appears a little bit thicker. I don't know why. And then you can see the Pagani is a little bit longer than the Watchdives version. So yeah, just something to note. They're pretty much the same size. Yeah, I think they both wear great. I'm going to go outside right now and throw the Watchdives on my wrist. And here we are on my 7.5 inch wrist, and as you can see, it just wears great. I've got no issues with it at all. The size just about right for, I would say, pretty much any wrist. So there you can see the down the wrist shot there, pretty flat case, which is typical for this style of watch, but still think it wears it very nice, very comfortable. Crowns don't dig into the wrist or anything like that. It feels pretty balanced on wrist as well. So overall, I am pretty satisfied with it. And here we are in some direct sunlight. As you can see there, it does get a little bit washed out. I don't think there's much AR coating on this, if any, but I really don't think it needs it. For the most part, it's perfectly legible. But there you go. I think it looks pretty good. I like all the polished accents on the bracelet, on the case, ceramic bezel. I think it all looks pretty good. All right, let's go throw it on a couple straps and we'll get back to this review. Here we are on a black rubber strap. This is from Straps Co. Link will be down below. I don't really think this watch looks great on anything other than the bracelet. This is being one of the exceptions. I do think it looks pretty good on that. I'm going to keep the strap section a little short today, but yeah, I got a couple other ones I'm going to throw on it, and hopefully they look all right. Here we are on a single pass nylon strap. This is from CNS watch bands. I think that actually looks pretty good. It's a dark green with the white dial. I think that combo almost always looks nice. So yeah, what do you think of that one? Still like it better on the bracelet. But I got one last nylon strap. We'll throw it on and we'll get back to this review. And lastly, here we are on a nylon strap. Sorry about not having my typical outdoor shots. It's very, very windy today, so I'm trying to keep you guys out of the wind. But yeah, I think the monochrome aspect of the watch itself, figured it would look pretty good on a Bond style nylon strap. There's 2 layers underneath the watch there, Cincy Strap Co. SF2, so it's a nice thin nylon strap, and I think it wears and looks pretty darn good actually. But I'm going to go throw this back on the bracelet and let's get back to this review. All right, so let's talk about the case and the case finishing. So when I got this Watchdives version, I was pretty convinced that it was the same exact watch, at least the same exact case. Obviously, I knew they did a little differently here and there, but actually having them in hand, the Watchdives seem smaller. You can see the lug profile seems thinner on the Watchdives version. They're both fully polished cases. You can see the crown guards are a little bit different as well. I think they're more well-defined on the Watchdives version. The crown is smaller as well, which I really do appreciate. You can see the ceramic bezels. You can see the Pagani one is a little bit more flat, while the Watchdives one is a little more domed, I guess, or angled. You can see the layout of the bezel insert. They look pretty good. I do prefer the Watchdives version. This one here, I've always called this the tit bezel because it has TIT on it. Always makes me laugh when I see that, but I do prefer the more bold numbering on this one, and it's more true to the original as well, so I do prefer that. But yeah, I was quite surprised that the cases are not the same case. I thought they were for sure, but they're definitely not. You can see there the Watchdives version is quite a bit thinner, so it does wear, I think, a little smaller. It is shorter as well, and then you can see the rehout depth. The rehout depth on the Watchdives version is quite a bit shallower. So yeah, that's just something else to note. This one does seem a little deep dish. It's not anything that it's going to bother you, but actually having them side by side, you can definitely see the Watchdives one is a better look in my opinion. So yeah, just something to note. As far as the case finishing goes, they're exactly the same. They're both fully polished. I can't really give points for one over the other. Fully polishing a case is not something that's super difficult. So yeah, I think the fact that they're both fully polished, there's no brushing or anything like that. Yeah, I can't really give points from one to the other. Flipping it over to the case backs here, you can see the Pagani design does have a normal screw down case back with simple notches in it, and it's signed as well. The Watchdives one is just sterile. I don't mind a sterile case back, but I do have an issue with the coin edge style. Not everyone has the tool to get into that. This watch here is going to be a lot easier to get into. So that's just something I'd like to see Watchdives upgrade. Just use a normal screw down case back. I think everyone will appreciate it, especially on a quartz watch like this, where you're going to open it up every 2 or 3 years. So yeah, as far as the materials and the finishing, like I said, they're identical, but the cases are a little bit different. I feel like the Watchdives one wears just a little bit smaller. All right, so let's talk about the crystals. First things first, we will test them both for sapphire. You can see positive on the Pagani, positive on the Watchdives. So they are both sapphire crystals. Watchdives, they claim that they have some anti-reflective coating, clear AR coating. I'm not really seeing it, but there you can see side by side the two reflections. They seem about the same. Maybe Pagani is putting AR coating on their crystals now. I'm not really sure. Either way, I think a flat sapphire crystal doesn't really need AR coating, especially on white dials. So yeah, I don't see an advantage one over the other here. You can see, I guess, in profile, the Watchdives version sits up over the bezel insert a little bit, where the Pagani one is pretty much flat with it. So yeah, that's basically it. I see no advantage one over the other there. All right, so let's talk about the dial on this thing. So the dial on them, again, pretty much identical. I believe the Pagani is using a matte white, and the Watchdives is a glossy white. So that's really the only difference that I'm seeing, only major difference. The subdials are slightly different as well. You have smaller subdials on the Watchdives version, a little bit more markings on the 24-hour counter there. 60 counter is about the same. And the actual chronograph, which I find very useful, it is fully marked for the chronograph minute hand, where the Pagani one is only marked every 5. So using this thing as an actual timer is a pain in the butt, and it's really useless in my opinion. So yeah, that's just one big disadvantage of the Pagani design. You can see it also has a date window here. It doesn't look too bad on the white version, but if you get a black version or a darker dial color, that thing sticks out like a sore thumb. I definitely prefer the cleaner no date version on the Watchdives here. The handset is also a little bit different. You do have these kind of black striped hands on the Pagani design there, while you have just normal faceted hands on the Watchdives version. I don't prefer one over the other. I think they are both the good size. I've got no issues with them. Same with the chronograph hand. I believe the chronograph hands, they're looking pretty much identical to me. Maybe a little bit bigger on the Pagani design, but really not an advantage one over the other. As far as the finishing on everything goes, again, they seem to be done to the same standard. I see no issues with the Pagani. I think it's finished fine on the dial. Same with the Watchdives. I see no issues with it. One big advantage of the Watchdives version is the Lume. Everyone knows that Pagani Lume is terrible. Watchdives, they're using Swiss BGW9 on the dial, on the hands, and even on the bezel itself, which is a little bit of a party trick. It's not something that many people are going to use, but I guess it's kind of cool that they're doing it. It is a pure white Lume, and then you can see the dial in the hands. There is a little bit of a mismatch in the Lume color during the daytime, but at night when the lights go out, this thing glows like a torch while this thing just fades really quickly. I'm going to pop up a Lume shot between these two. I also threw in the Willard just for fun, so you can see how good the Watchdives version is. It's actually really good Lume for a chronograph, better than it needs to be. So yeah, I'm really happy. If the Lume on the Pagani has always been the major turnoff, yeah, the Watchdives version is a huge upgrade. All right, so let's talk about the movements between the two. Both are the Seiko VK64. Obviously, we have a date here. We have a ghost date on the Watchdives version. They both are operated by the same screw-down crown at 3 o'clock position. I've covered this one. I think it's too big of a crown. This one is a really nice size crown, plenty of grip. Yeah, I've got no issues with it. It's nice and smooth, just as smooth as the Pagani. You get a nice satisfying pop out. Everything functions as it should. I've got no issues with either of these movements. They are accurate, they're reliable. I believe it's plus or minus 20 seconds per month, but obviously they run a lot better than that. These are they're typically within a couple seconds a month, so accuracy is not an issue. 3-year battery life is great. I got no problems with that. Yeah, they're wonderful. Again, I've got no issues with. They're operated by these crowns here at the 2 o'clock and at the 4 o'clock position. Screw down on both of them. No advantage one over the other here. They're both exactly the same in my opinion. Nice snappy action on the chronograph. Reset is perfect. So yeah, I've got no issues with either of these movements. They are great. Yeah, they're nice movements, and they're fun. They're cheap, and they're reliable, and they're accurate. Not really sure what else you would need. All right, so let's talk about the bracelet on this thing. So the bracelet is 20 millimeters and it tapers down to 16 millimeters at the clasp. It is solid links, solid end links, male pivot end links, but they do turn down nicer than the Pagani does, in my opinion. They fit the end links, they fit the case curvature just perfectly. I've got no real issues with it. I removed 2 links for my 7.5-inch wrist. The fluidity of the bracelet, I do have this one link here, which sometimes likes to catch on itself, but sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't make it uncomfortable or anything like that. It's just something I noticed. It does have push pins for sizing. The clasp on it is your typical Watchdives clasp. It's a pressed outer shell, 5 levels of micro adjust though, nice and thin, low profile, and I think it does work pretty nicely. It functions as it should every single time. Sorry, it's focusing on the wrong thing here, but you can see it's a milled inner part with nice solid tolerances. They do offer this clasp here for an extra $15 US. This is a full glide lock style clasp, so you have a sliding mechanism in here. It functions great. I've got no issues with this thing at all. It looks like the outer shell is very similar to the Pagani. As you can see there, it is a little bit softer on these back edges. The Pagani is always pretty sharp on these back edges here, and the quick extension has like a 6 millimeter quick extension thing in here. This thing, it works like half the time. So yeah, I'm surprised that this one actually does work, but I'm not exaggerating that. About half the time, half of these clasps, sometimes that doesn't extend out, and then when you can't extend it out, you can't get to those micro adjusts. So I'm pretty happy overall with the clasp decision. On the Watchdives version, you do have, like I said, the full range of motion there, which is nice to see. It's nice and smooth. One of the nicer ones that I've come across, right on par with like a CS one. So yeah, overall pretty satisfied with this clasp. they do offer this with a polished middle too. So just something to note. But I actually like the clasp that they have on it. 5 levels of micro adjust is plenty for me. I always get a good fit with those ones. So yeah, overall I'm pretty satisfied with it. The big difference between these things, you know, they're the same 20 to 16, but you can see the turn down to that middle link. It's quite a bit sharper turn down on the Watchdives, so that keeps it even smaller, shorter, lug to lug or end link to end link. And then the finishing is quite a bit nicer, I would say. It's probably not something a lot of people are going to appreciate, but being me, I can definitely appreciate the nicer finishing, smoother brushing, nicer polishing, stuff like that. And then the big thing is the tolerances. You can hear it already that this watch is pretty rattly, pretty jangly, especially when you pick it up off of a table or out of your watch box. It just kind of feels and sounds hollow. Yeah, you know, on wrist, it's fine. It's not a huge deal. I can sometimes hear it on wrist, but this bracelet it just feels like a more premium bracelet, and I know that it is a more premium bracelet. I can feel it. I can hear it every time I pick it up out of the watch box. You know, it just doesn't rattle like this one does. I'm hoping you guys can hear that. So it's just something that I notice, that I feel, and that I do actually appreciate. So I think the bracelets on them are fine for their price points. They're not going to blow you away. Like I mentioned, split pins on here. You do have screws on the Pagani design, which is, in my opinion, a nicer system. But I've never really had any issues with split pins. So yeah, as far as everything else goes, like the fit and finish on these things, you know, nice tight tolerances in there. This first link is always a big issue for the Pagani, not an issue here. And you know, fluidity, like I mentioned, I do have that one link that hangs up on itself right there, but other than that, the fluidity on this thing is perfectly fine. So I do think the bracelet on the Watchdives is a big selling point. That Pagani one is, I've never been a fan of them. They're very, very rattly, and they're very inconsistent. So I'm going to show you guys one thing that I've noticed. This first link on this side, it's actually not too bad. But the first link on this side, very sloppy, and this is where a lot of that rattling noise is coming from. So yeah, and I feel like down here in all of these lower links here, you can see like pretty inconsistent in between. There's just a lot of slop in there that shouldn't be there. And that's where those tighter tolerances come into play. And I definitely notice it and feel it every time I pick up this bracelet, this watch. So yeah, I do appreciate the nicer bracelet on this one. So there you go, guys. That is the Watchdives 16550 versus the Pagani design PD1644 or 1664. I can't remember which one it is. But this watch has been around for a very long time. And in my opinion, they are excellent value. They produced a ton of these watches, and that's why the prices are so low. You can get this watch usually on any given day. You can find this watch for about $50 US, 55 US dollars. This one's going to be $100 US on sale, or you know, early on in its sale, it was around $80 US. So you're paying almost double. You're paying almost double for the Watchdives version. And in my opinion, I'm at a point where if I really wanted this watch, and I wanted something pretty good, I would go for the Watchdives version. You're getting the nicer bracelet. You're getting the better lume. As far as everything else goes, I do prefer the case on the Watchdives. I feel like it's a little bit sharper, a little more crisp, and a little bit smaller. So yeah, that's just something that I personally prefer. If you guys are okay with the larger case and kind of softer edges on the Pagani, you know, case-wise, crystal-wise, movement-wise, dial-wise, I think they're pretty similar. It's the lume and the bracelet, and that's where I think the Watchdives is quite a bit nicer than the Pagani. We all know the Pagani lume is terrible. The lume on this watch is actually really good and kind of surprised me. The bracelet on this watch, it's a nice step up from this. It's not perfect. I'm not going to say it's perfect because it's definitely not, but I will say it's a nicer bracelet than this. Every time I pick up this watch here, I just am reminded at how bad that bracelet feels and sounds. And then when I pick up this watch here, it just immediately comes back to being a higher quality piece. and as it should be. It's almost double the price. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys. You know, are you willing to pay $30 to $50 more for a nicer bracelet and better lume? You know, for me, I am. And I especially like the fact that this does not have a date. That's another big selling point that I keep forgetting to point out. You know, every single one of these Paganis, they have a date. This one does not have a date, and I really do appreciate that. It's a nice, cleaner look, in my opinion. So, yeah, I think that's about it for me. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one. See ya.